How y'all doing? This is Mike Zito. Hope you're doing well. I want to take a little time and run through some gear for you. Some new things, some old things. I was talking to my good friend Tom Holland up in Chicago, and he's been bragging on this Quilter amp. The Quilter ToneBlock 200. I got mine this past week. We're doing a lot of fly dates this summer, and he swears by it. I saw David Hidalgo using the Quilter, and I thought, well, I need to give it a shot. I need an amp that I can fly with. I'm going to be playing through this Telecaster. Well, it's kind of an Esquire that my friend Stephen White built me. He builds guitars down in Florida. Very awesome guitar. It says Mike Zito. That's nice. And look at all the pinstriping he did. Great finish. Cool pinstriping on the back. And look at the flame on that neck. It's really beautiful. It's just a single pickup in there, Lawler. And I'm going to run a Granville copper drive from my good friend Scott Davis, and I got a Mad Professor Silver Spring reverb pedal. So let's just run that for right now, and I'll show you. This is what the amp sounds like, just clean. So here we are. Now, when I first got this amp, I had no idea really how to run it. It's different, obviously, than a normal guitar amp. You unplug the speaker, which I have a Dr. Z Maz 18 here, and I just unplugged the speaker. So I'm not using the Dr. Z, just using the speaker. I plugged it into the back of the Quilter. And the idea here is that I bring this with me in a gig bag. I fly to a festival. They have a twin on stage. Maybe it works good, maybe it doesn't. Instead, I unplug the speakers to that, unplug it back into this Quilter, and I have an analog 200 watt amp. Now, it just sounded like kind of a clean, standard amp. Sounds pretty good. When I would plug pedals, it sounded very analog, very solid state at first. I was not, I was like, I don't think this works, or I don't know what these guys are. I wasn't getting it, you know. So come on in here. Let me show you. So what I started doing was just started treating it like an amp. Okay, so I'm going to drop it to the 10 watt setting, and I just started cranking this up like this. Hear that? That's a huge difference from this. Not just volume. It actually starts to kind of sag and compress like an overdriven amp. Sounds pretty good. This contour here it's basically a mid-range. So all the way down here you get kind of the scoop Fender sound. And if you run it up here, you get a little more of that. All the way to here to flat, and then here is really like a top end. To me, it almost sounds like a top boost, like a Vox. This is probably best for me for what I like. And then if I want, I'll put a little bit on. Now, there's no reverb, there's no effects loop. Everything runs straight in. So what I found is if I turn this reverb pedal on, like any amp without an effects loop, right? It gets that sound of the reverb hitting the front end. So if I roll this back to about here, somewhere in this range here. That sounds great. Good, clean sound, right on. So now, what I've been trying to do is match up the right overdrive pedal with it. And the copper drive is a Granville take on, kind of a tube screamer. But I know Scott said what he did was he just yanked everything out and opened it wide up. And so it's a really big fat, It sounds pretty awesome. I mean, I think it does. And I've tried different pedals, just like you would with any amp. The idea behind this is that rather than using backline night after night after night and never getting quite consistent tone, other than the speakers, you'd have the same sound all the time. And I mean, this is the reason I would be using this amp right here. But I could see where, like, I mean, this amp would work well in so many other applications. If you were a cover band, or you were a band maybe working a lot of like low volume gigs, things like that, where you really needed to turn down, but you needed a good consistent sound. It really does react when you get this volume turned up in here. I can feel it. I can feel it. The what I thought was kind of a stale wall is totally gone. It's definitely dynamic and reacting to the picking and the attack. That's why the copper drive works so well with it. Is it's just kind of the good fat overdrive. But let's talk about volume. By the way, I'm going to blow your eardrums out. I have it set on 10 watts right now. I mean, it's pretty loud. I mean, I don't know that I would be a lot louder with my group. Now let's run it up to 40 watts. It does react differently then. It's... It's really fat, it's really loud. That would be more than enough volume that I would need ever playing with my group. And it's at the 40 watt setting, and it goes up to 200 watts. Apparently it's like 100 watts a channel. It's tons of volume. There's an XLR out that I believe is, kind of simulates like maybe speaker simulation. You can run it direct. And the one last thing I'll show you is, so here's a totally different drive pedal sound. Let's run it back down. Just so you can hear, this is a love pedal, the tweed pedal. Right, a little more, it's got a little more scooped mid-range sound. So like what I would do right here is take this here, the contour, knock it up 2 notches. Maybe even one more, let's see. So to me, that's where that contour EQ, depending on what you match it up with, tone-wise, you can kind of set the mid-range, where you want it. And I believe my friend Tom, he's not, he doesn't have really a pedal guy. He just has like a reverb and tremolo. He just cranks the amp up and plays it old school. And it definitely, like I showed you before, it definitely gets that sound. Well, so there you go. That's my take on the ToneBlock 200. I think it's going to work all summer long. That's what I'm going to put in my gig bag and fly out with. I'll probably bring a couple overdrive pedals, depending on where I get with what I think is going to work well, and a reverb pedal and a tuner. And that's probably going to be my fly rig for the summer. A couple of guitars. So I think if you're someone that's playing it at home and needs to keep things at a quiet volume, I think if you're someone that's doing a gig that requires a lot of different sounds and you need a useful amp, or maybe somebody that's traveling a lot. I mean, this was $399. I can't imagine any guitar player not wanting to have one of these. It seems so useful. That's the Quilter ToneBlock 200. Peace!